Hey, what's going on, guys? Just trying to get everything online. Today we're going to be talking about what emission standards have done to diesel engines. If you guys are joining us today, make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Let me know if we're live. Let me know how audio sounds. I'm trying to get chat up. Hello, Swift from New York. Thanks for joining us. What type of truck you got? If you are a driver, what type of truck do you got? Thanks for joining us. We're going to start the broadcast here shortly. Just trying to get chat working. Appreciate you guys' patience. All right, let's see. I don't think that looks right. Let's see here. If I can't get this working right, we're just gonna get started. You got a 97 International. What kind of engine? Is it got an International in it? 4700. Oh, sorry, saw that. You're running flatbed. How's that? Is that a Max Force? Or is that or you got a Cummins in there? Appreciate you joining us. Let me work on getting this chat displayed correctly. I'll try one more thing. If not, we're just gonna keep on moving. All right, there it is. .3. Yeah, that's a good engine. Pre-emissions. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. A lot of those older engines, you can't get, I mean, they're using them. You still see them around, of course. You have them. They're just not manufacturing them anymore. So all the newer engines are emissions control. So that's what we're going to be talking about. 6.7 is a solid truck. I know they got them in Fords as well, in the older Fords. And then they moved over to they went over to the 6.0, and they started having a lot of problems. Ford had a lot of issues with their manufacturer, whoever was making their engine. First it was International, and then they went ahead and started working on their, trying to do everything in house. And that's when they developed that V8 with the exhaust valves towards the center. And now if you understand how engines works, usually on a V8 you're gonna have exhaust valves on the outside, pushing towards the outside, and then that's when you would put the of course the mufflers or the exhaust pipes in the headers. But they made it so that they swapped it around so that now that all the tubing can just be directly towards the turbo, because when you have a V8 and the exhaust is on the outside, you have to run all your tubing from your exhaust to get it to a turbo. And if you're running one turbo, a single turbo, that's a lot of piping. So they made that into the V8, and I believe I see that in the the newer model engines as well. So that's kind of what I'm going to be discussing today, is how just engines evolved. Let's get this show started. How you doing, everyone? Thanks for joining us. I have a viewer now that was just discussing what engine he's using. He's a 7.3. Let me know where everyone's watching from. That's a driver up there in New York. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate everyone that's joining us this evening. We're going to get this show started. I'm going to be discussing a few things. It's really interesting. I know when we think about emissions control, we're thinking about one boxes and we're thinking about just, it's costing us so much money. And I agree. I agree that a lot of these trucks, a lot of these manufacturers struggle to get a solution in place when it comes to these standards that were happening. So that's what I want to discuss today. Emission standards have been a challenge for the manufacturers since the beginning. When in 2003, when these regulations really started rolling out, it started to cause a lot of problems. These manufacturers weren't used to this. They were mostly manufacturing trucks that were built for just being bulletproof, just durability. They weren't concerned about fuel. Fuel was very cheap back then. Fuel was, if you compare fuel prices from 2003 to now, there were definitely, we'll check it out. Let me see, fuel prices from 2003 to current. We'll put diesel prices, and I'm pretty sure it's a difference. So back then they were just making engines just to stay durable, which is not an issue. There's nothing wrong with that. But back then diesel was $1.50 a gallon back in 2003. I just looked that up. So $1.50 a gallon compared to now. So emissions started to kind of roll out because, of course, the engines were not as being wasteful. But if you don't understand how internal combustion engines work, let me break down a few things. So, for example, to measure out how much work that you can get out of an engine, they call it brake thermal efficiency. That's how they measure, and they'll put it on a dyno. Let me show you. Share screen here. So they'll put the engine on a dyno like so, and this is how they measure the brake thermal efficiency of this engine. So it's how efficient this internal combustion engine converts energy, which is fuel, into useful mechanical energy for power. And they break this down into a ratio. So in 2003, Detroit Series 60, got a big following. It's a really solid engine. As I mentioned, it didn't have any concerns about meeting emission standards. So this was a bulletproof engine. So this engine, the brake thermal efficiency of that engine was 40% to 42%. That means only 40 to 42% of the energy was actually captured and converted into power. So that means the remaining 60 to 58% was just wasted. Okay, and that's also including the Cummins ISX. It's all engines during the 2003 time. So definitely was something that people were looking at like, wait, it's just these engines are being pretty wasteful. How do we make this better? How do we make them less pollutant? So that's kind of what standards started to do now. And I'm not saying, oh, okay, well, it was just a smooth transition. Definitely wasn't a smooth transition. If you've been in trucking long enough, where a lot of these emissions started rolling out, it was very challenging because all they were doing were, first they introduced EGRs. EGR valves were the first things they started to introduce to kind of recirculate this wasted power, as I mentioned. And this wasted power, if we're talking about 40 to 42% of the energy being caught and 60 to 58% of it being lost, and that energy is being lost through the exhaust, the cooling system, and friction. So one of the ways they were trying to recapture this energy, this spent energy, is recirculated back into the exhaust again, or I'm sorry, into the intake. So they would capture the exhaust gases coming out, which is spent energy, capture it and try to cool it off into an EGR cooler. They still use this now. And the EGR cooler is basically kind of like a radiator, and it's running your coolant through there. And it's supposed to cool the exhaust temperature down a little bit before it gets recirculated back into the intake. Now, of course, it's not healthy when it comes to, we're looking for power. But as I mentioned, back then they weren't focused on building engines for efficiency. They were focused on building engines that were bulletproof. So now that efficiency is in place and they want to capture some of that spent energy, this is what they started to do. So tunings changed, fueling maps changed, cylinder heads changed, because now if you're running this exhaust gas back into the intake, of course it's going to be hot. They did everything they could engineers did everything they could to cool this off and make it so they can cool it off. That's why I mentioned the EGR cooler. But in some cases, if the EGR cooler is not, they went through a lot of different designs, but if it wasn't designed correctly, it would either get clogged or it would basically do the opposite, and it would boil the coolant and actually create more problems in the cooling system. As I mentioned, some of that energy is being lost through the coolant. So it caused a lot of problems whenever the first EGR system started coming out, and EGR coolers, they're adding piping onto engines that weren't designed for it on the 60 series. So it started creating a lot of problems. And then later on, they started putting in just the DPF filters, which was the the DOC and the DPF filters. They started just adding those onto the muffler, removing the entire muffler and just replacing that. If you worked on trucks before, which we used to work on, we've worked on trucks for many years, but before after treatment systems, we of course just replacing mufflers. Now nobody stocks mufflers anymore. We're having to replace after treatment systems. And I know there's a lot of people against these after treatment systems and they don't want to use them. And it's understandable if you're a truck owner or if you're a fleet owner and you're having a lot of downtime because of these units, but it just takes more maintenance on these. And if you go back, and I've done a lot of literature on how to run these equipment correctly, not over idling. But so I don't want to get too far off. So they first started getting the DPF and the DOC filters on, and those problems started coming up as well, because operators had to learn how these trucks are going to be ran differently now, with the not being able to excessive idle them and being able to ride them on long trips, so they can get those filters actually processing and working correctly. So yes, created a lot of problems. And these engineers and there's a lot of people that are involved when developing these engines. It's not just one person in a room with a piece of paper. These are, I looked it up. You're looking at, I'm gonna tell you how many different engineers are involved when developing a diesel engine. There's a mechanical engineer, there's a thermal engineer. The mechanical engineers focus on the structure and the mechanical design, engine components, pistons, cylinders, cylinder heads. As I mentioned, whenever they started developing the EGRs and creating a hotter cylinder, they definitely had to make some changes there. And one of the things that I've noticed is when the 60 series started to develop more and more, before they sold off to Daimler, which I'm going to get to later, they really started trying to do their best to create an engine that worked. But on the other hand, it caused a lot of problems. People were used to, on these older engines, being able to run them a little bit hot. You could run it if you busted a hose by an accident and you accidentally ran it hot just for a second. I mean, sometimes, with exceptions to Caterpillars, for some reason Caterpillars their heads like to crack if you get them too hot. And I'm not saying you can get any engine hot. Now, I wouldn't expect, if a truck is showing any kind of warning, now that I'm talking about this, if you're a driver and you're getting any kind of warning out there, be sure to, it's your job to understand your truck. You know the truck more than anyone else out there. It's not the mechanics, it's not the shop, it's not the fleet manager. You know that truck if it's not running correctly. And think of it kind of like a pilot. You're a pilot. You basically have a pilot's license. And if you're about to take this pilot, you're about to take off in your plane and you feel like something's not right on that plane, I don't think that pilot's going to get off that ground, So be sure to take responsibility for your trucks, okay? Don't push them like they're a car. They're a lot larger trucks. If you're looking at a car, the average car and the average internal combustion engine is probably, without even looking it up, let me see what the displacement is on the average passenger car. What is the displacement of the average car? So this is just an example. Average displacement 1.5 to 2 liters. Okay, when we're talking about displacement, that's the size of the piston. Okay, and the way that that's how they measure the size of engines. So they measure is kind of like it's the volume of the cylinder. So inside the cylinder, if we're talking about we're at 1.5 liters, 2 liters. That's a very small cylinder. That's the average size of a car. And why do I bring this up? A check engine on a 2.0 liter car that's not really doing much but pulling you around, one person, maybe two people on a regular. Okay, you might be able to limp that thing a little bit. Okay, but on highway engines, we're talking about 15 liters. Okay, if we take the middle of those 1.5 and 2 liter average of a average car engine, we'll say 1 liter. Say for example 1 liter. So that's 15 engines. Just the volume of that in a truck. So if a check engine light or temperature is rising, or if there's low power, these are big indicators that something's going on. And as a driver, these are something that you should not ignore. And pushing them further, and pushing them any further, I probably don't even have to mention this even further. If you have experience out there with any engines, pushing them further is just going to make problems happen and destroy things. So when I mentioned that, going back to the designs and what the engineers were doing to bring down the temperature of the cylinder, what they did was take out metal in the head. And I mentioned this before. Now, how do they do that? Why do they do that? They took out more metal out of the head so that they can make more flow, cause more coolant flow. So now their idea where they're able to move that heat out of that cylinder with more coolant flow. But what this did internally is create a weaker engine, because now you don't have any kind of threshold when it comes to getting a truck hot. If you get a truck hot on a modern engine, do not get it hot. Do not get it close to hot. If you're getting any warnings, be sure to pull over. And the computer is going to let you know. The computer is going to it's going to show how long that truck has ran hot, how many minutes that truck was ran at certain temperature ranges. And so you're going to be able to see that type of information. So they became very delicate. Okay, so EGRs came in place. A lot of manufacturers were struggling. The only ones that I probably would mention that didn't struggle as much but still did a bit is Volvo. And the only reason is Volvo had a little bit of more experience with developing engines and with stricter emission standards. So they had a little bit of experience, but they still, and I'm going to mention some things that kind of that I've seen with the engine and as they develop. Some of the engines take other people's ideas, and that's what I want to discuss. So what happens? What happened over time? Detroit got to a point where they didn't even want to make engines no more. They were like, what are we going to do? We're having all these problems with these emissions. We're having, all they had with this at that time was the DOC and the DPF, and of course the EGR valve. So EGR valve and EGR cooler. And if you worked on the Series 60, when they started putting on those EGR valves and EGR coolers, the coolers were like below the turbo. They were a little bit tough to get to. And then the valves were kind of changed a little bit. They were kind of just develop them in different ways. So what did end up happening? So Daimler comes along which was Mercedes-Benz, which is Mercedes-Benz, and they were looking at how they can get now listen to this, because this is where things really started to evolve, and this is where I can say probably the most positive thing that happened with the standards being in place with emissions control and the develop of the diesel engine. Because as I mentioned, back then they were just developing engines, with diesel a dollar and a half. People weren't worried about saving money. People weren't worried about saving fuel. If you back then 2003, if you fast forward to now and talked about, hey, oh man, fuel one day fuel is going to be so high you're not even going to be able to, you're going to be think twice about filling up. Back then people were filling up $1.50 a gallon, and rates, and I just think about this right now because rates is pretty much the same. I mean, I don't know why rates haven't raised, but we're going to see what's going on, with this cycle that's happening now. Pretty excited today. Already worked up a sweat. Appreciate everybody that's joining us today. Appreciate everybody that's joining us. Let me know where you're watching from. If you got any questions, let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. If you're in the DFW area, Dallas-Fort Worth area, very high traffic area, come check us out. We got a solid shop, up-to-date equipment. Got all the information available for our technicians. We follow the same procedures, if not more clear than you would at a dealer. We use the same parts, and I'm not trying to dog anybody else, but just let you know we got some express service, some experienced guys there. So check us out. If you want to give us a call, 972-225-3017. Check us out online. We're open Monday through Friday from 8 to 6. Give us a shout. So what happened with Detroit? All right, I'm a little sweaty because I'm excited in here. We got the lights on, and we're talking about emissions, and we're talking about diesel. We're talking about diesel trucks, and I get excited about them. So Mercedes was already trying to figure out how they're going to get into the truck market, the heavy duty truck market. Caterpillar was doing the same thing that Detroit was, and they were just adding stuff and trying to figure out what they're going to do, and just throwing stuff on the way, and unfortunately everybody had to deal with the cost of it, and I know that it's a very tough situation because as a driver you're trying to figure out, okay, what can I do? But now basically maintenance and just being aware of how to run this truck properly is going to be your best options. And I know that everyone's going to be talking about deletes and hack deletes, and we're going to get into this. We're going to get into that because you got to understand when it comes to developing these trucks, and I'll get to this a little bit more later, but one of the engineers that are involved are going to be to basically make these trucks hack proof. And with today's technology, the way that it's growing, and I mean, basically, a lot. If we all knew what was really going on in the cyber world right now, we've been in cyber warfare forever. So hackers are just getting more intelligent, and with AI, it's getting even more and more advanced. So it's going to be very interesting to develop more and more of the developments of what's going on with diesel engines. So as we move forward, I wanted to talk about, move on to, let me go back to when we were talking about Detroit and what they do. Daimler already had a lot of experience with Mercedes, and as I mentioned, they wanted to get into the truck market. So they get with Detroit and they see, okay, well, these people are established. There's an established factory, established setup. They got everybody in place already. Let's go ahead and buy them. Detroit was very happy about it. They bought them, turned into Daimler of North America. Now and what they introduced was the DD15. The DD15, of course, that's why everyone calls it, oh, it's the Mercedes engine. That's a Mercedes. If you see a lot of the parts, if you work on a DD15, some of the parts will have a Mercedes logo on it. They're coming from the same manufacturer. It is a Mercedes. So Mercedes had a lot of experience coming out of Europe and developing trucks that met stricter emission standards. And whether you are a believer of smog or not, that's not what this discussion is about. This is going to be about what emissions controls did with the development and the evolution of the diesel engines. So, that's a whole nother topic, and maybe we'll get to it. I only wanted to do a 1 hour broadcast today, and we're about a quarter away, so maybe we'll be able to cover it. Kind of want to turn these lights down. A little warm in here. Let me take a quick break, quick water break. And you know what, guys? I just saw that my chat is not up. Let me put this up here. There it is. Sorry about that, chat. Let me know where everyone's watching from. Let's put this right here. I don't want it over my face. Can't see it. We're going to go over these comments shortly. Sorry if I'm not getting to them right as they're popping up, but let me know where you're watching from. Thanks for joining us this evening. If you got any questions, let me know. Be more than happy to answer some of your questions if you have any. I was going to go live at 7, but I got too excited, so here we are. Got a few questions here. NC, what's up? NC in the house. David says, very true. Owner should know and read his truck. Yes. Thank you for co-signing that. And I'm pretty sure that was the comment on, if you have an issue on the road, or if you're driving that truck and you say, for example, I know I got no power on this truck and I got to check engine light. It don't matter if your mom calls you. It don't matter if the president calls you and tells you, hey, keep on going. You know that something's wrong with that truck. That's your responsibility. I mean, that's what you have a CDL. That's what the CDL holder's for. The mechanic doesn't have the CDL. Not even a president probably has a CDL. Some presidents might have a CDL. I wonder if any president ever had a CDL. Let me get this chat out of my face. I appreciate everybody just joining us this evening. I didn't mean to rant. But I appreciate that comment, David. Yeah. Some drivers don't want to take responsibility. A lot of people like to blame others and feel victimized, and it's a distorted thought pattern. And I'm not attacking the person. I'm not attacking the people that think this way. But if you don't understand that that's a distorted way of thinking, then people are going to continue to think that way. But understanding it and realizing, oh, okay, that is a distorted way of thinking, and understanding, challenging those thoughts. Okay, well, could I have pulled over? Could I have double checked that? Yes. I mean, definitely. Thank you for that comment. Wicked. One day I will be able to afford and buy an old Volvo. Well, Volvos are good trucks. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to get back on the topic, but I just wanted to get to your guys' comments a little bit, take a break, sip on some more coffee. And I got a few screens up, so I don't want to stare right at you. So I'm over here at this screen. I got my phone here as well. Volvo VNL is a decent truck. You don't want to buy them too old, because what I've noticed is from vibrations and just a long time over time use, you can have wiring issues with Volvos, and electrical problems are the worst with Volvos. Electrical problems are bad with any truck, especially with high mileage, because I mean, these trucks are put together in an assembly line. The harness is pretty much installed with the bare frame before the engine, before the cab. So the chafing occurs over time, the movement over time. So sometimes a short can happen, and they can be very difficult to find. It's literally trying to find a needle in a haystack, literally. So don't get the Volvo 2.0. What's up? What's up, Alfredo? Would it be good to install fuel water separator on a 2020 Freightliner Cascadia? I mean, how many filters are you running? Are you running the rail filters already, and you have the two filter system? If so, how often are you replacing those filters? Because adding more filters, okay, it'd give you more filtration, but if you're waiting too long to replace those filters, you don't want to wait too long. And especially when nowadays it's kind of tough to check the quality in the fuel. Hell, it's tough to check the quality in the water that we get nowadays. We have to buy, coolant. Not coolant, but water strips to test the quality of the water that we're drinking, even with bottled water. So definitely keep an eye on those filters. If you want to replace your filters on your own, get them on your own. If not, go into you can either do filter replacement or stay on top of your PMs. Basically, don't go too long on your PMs. But if you want to add an additional water separator, it's good. But I wouldn't add another one and then still try to go 30,000 miles on your filters. I still would change those filters. Start changing your filters less. And see. Definitely, because you want to save that fuel pump. I understand. You don't want problems. It's good measures, Alfredo. But stay on top of those filters, 20,000 miles. Let me know how often you're changing your fuel filters. Do you sell trucks? We do have some trucks for sale. Give us a call, 972-225-3017. Thank you for that question. We're going to get back to the main topic that you tuned in for, but I wanted to get to some of these comments so that if you guys got any questions, hit me up. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe. If you're in the DFW area and you're looking for truck service, give us a shout, 972-225-3017. We have expedited service, technicians ready to go, up-to-date equipment. We got lifts. We can get the truck off the ground, get a real solid inspection. Some guys on Mondays don't want to lay on the ground, okay? And they don't want to check really thoroughly under your truck. At our shop, we have lifts. We can lift them up in the air. Makes it very comfortable for the driver. Comfortable for the technician, so that they can get the work done in a comfortable manner, because it is tough. Just like driving, it's very difficult. We got free coffee if you guys want to give us a shout. All right. Next question, and we're going to get back on topic. What do you think about the 2018 Mac? Okay, you got a 2018 Mac with 611,000 miles. Now that's I don't know the history of the truck. Anytime I request somebody or somebody asks, hey, what do you think about this truck? Try to get the repair history and the maintenance history, because at 500,000 miles, anything when you start hitting up that 500,000 miles and above, or close to after 400,000 miles, when you get close to 500,000 miles, that's really when a lot of that major maintenance starts to come up, and that's going to be valve adjustments. If it has a after-treatment system filters replaced. If the oils hasn't been kept up that whole time, you could have some problems. So there's just a lot of things that can come in play. So just by giving me that mileage in the make, that's good information. But at the same time, you got to do your homework on that equipment and be able to kind of make a good decision. It's just like buying a car, and you don't want to buy a piece of junk. And another thing I would like to add to that comment is, especially right now, and when COVID happened, and when COVID happened, it really kind of spiked and accelerated all this freight, and the volume was just very high, and everybody was just ordering stuff. So, caused a lot of volume to happen. But since then, it's just been kind of like a decline. And the reason why I bring that up is because there's truckers that got out of the business, and there's trucks that have been sitting around. And during that decline years of those two years of decline, there's people that passed up maintenance and didn't take care of their trucks, and now they're ready to sell them. And that's why I say do your homework. So I appreciate that question. If you want your question to be asked right away, hit that super chat button. If you guys are in a DFW area and you're looking to buy a truck, give us a shout, 972-225-3017. If you're having after treatment problems, give us a shout. We're right off of Interstate 20 and Bonneview Road. If you know where the TA and the Flying J is, we're just south of them. And very, very convenient area. There's a lot of truck stops in that area. Big highways. You can get there. Access is very easy. So check us out. So let's get back on the subject and see how much more I can get out today, because we might have to do a follow-up on this particular subject, just because there's just so much that happened. There's so much that continues to happen with the evolution of the diesel engine. So Daimler bought Detroit. That's where I left off. Daimler bought Detroit, and then what happened? Okay, Detroit came out with the DD15. It was supposedly the $1 million. They spent $1 million to redesign the engine, and as I mentioned, designing an engine is not an easy task. You have a lot of people involved. Detroit came out and really just changed the game. And I'm sorry, Daimler came out, bought Detroit under Detroit's name. So I wasn't wrong. They're still using Detroit name. They didn't change the name. So the DD15 came out and just changed the game. Okay. And I'm telling you how they did it. All right. First, they came out with they went back to a high pressure system. Now they've messed with high pressure systems back before emissions control were really kind of pushing up, but not like they did this time. This time they made a common rail system. They completely got rid of the plunger style injector, which, if you're not familiar with that, an injector is going to have a plunger, which is the rocker is going to be the lever pushing down the injector, and when it's time, it's going to push and spray the injector as well. And when you have a fuel supply to it as well, that's how high pressure was being made on the injectors. And some of the injectors are still working like that. If you have older engines, these injectors they're good injectors. They work, but it's kind of like a semi-mechanical injector where there's a solenoid in place. Yeah, there's an electrical solenoid, but it's also as a plunger as well. So it's a kind of a mixture of a mechanical and electric injector. So Detroit completely gets rid of that and goes not with the plunger style. They go with a high pump system. So a high pressure system where extremely high pressure, common rail. Now, and what they did differently, and this is what they called it, amplifying rail, which basically, to not get too technical, is just what was the ability to spray diesel as the piston is coming up in its combustion stroke, is able to barely spray in different stages and then finally spray. So, and at different stages, they kind of amplified the fuel dosage, and this created higher compression and a cleaner combustion compared to the older injectors where it just busts, it just throws the fuel as soon as the injector comes up. This style was so it kind of staged the fuel, staged it before, and before that it was just dumping the fuel in there. So anyway, doing this was able to create a cleaner combustion, so it cut down emissions, and also what it did was increase compression. Now, what happens when you increase compression? A whole lot of things need to change. They had to change the stroke, they had to change the piston, they had to change the cylinder. This truck had to be completely redesigned because of the higher pressure with the high pressure fuel system combined. So they did a whole type different designs on it. All right. So this engine was completely different from all the others. All right. Everybody was like, whoa, what is this? It's a Mercedes engine. I don't want to mess with it. I mean, any other than manufacturers, nobody, no one was talking about it, but I mean, other manufacturers later on, I'm going to tell you, they started copying it. EGR valves were on top. Okay. Detroit did come out with a turbine that was coming on the back of the turbo. Now that turbine was supposed to catch some of the exhaust coming off of the turbo and create there was another turbine that would create power transfer directly to the flywheel. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, a lot of this energy that is being wasted is being shot out that tailpipe. You know, we're 40 something percent of the energy being just shot out the tailpipe. That's pretty wasteful. So Detroit's like, well, let's see if we can use some of that energy, that exhaust power to drive another turbine. But this time, this is going to be directly to the flywheel. Later on, they abandoned that idea. But it's interesting, as I mentioned, other platforms started kind of copying this, and I mean, it's even happening now. And I'm going to show you. Let me go to Caterpillar. And the only reason why I want to talk about Caterpillar is because, you know, Caterpillar jumped out. They jumped out. They said no. And during all these emission standards, Caterpillar did try a couple things, but they eventually just stopped producing on highway engines. And the last highway engine, let me see, the last highway engine that they made, let me see what year that was. Let me see what year that was. Might not have the last. It might be the C15. The C15 was probably the last one. I want to say 2003. It might have been the ACERT. Here it is. 2010 was the last produced on-highway Caterpillar engine. Was 2003. I'm sorry, 2010. Excuse me. Due to the increasingly strict emissions regulations, the company decided to exit the on-highway engine market. The final highway truck engine series they made was the Caterpillar C15, which was widely used, and everybody knows that C15. It was a twin turbo. Some of them had the twin turbos. That was a really strong engine, but they just had, you know, with the. I did a video on it was some rocker shaft or a rocker Jake brake. It was a Jake. Excuse me. It was the Jake brake housing bolts that broke, and it was because they were so long, and they had to design it that way due to emissions, and it caused a lot of failures. And I know there's more people that usually work on a lot of cats, but you know, as I mentioned, cat jumped out of the game in 2010. We see some cats, older cats in, but a lot of the trucks that we work on in our shop are more the modern on-highway. There's a lot of Caterpillars out there. I'm not saying there's not no Caterpillars out there. I'm not saying we don't work on Caterpillars. We have all the access to Caterpillars manuals. We work on Caterpillars all the time, but I'm just talking about the volume that we see is going to be mostly Volvos and Detroits, and of course the newer stuff, the Packars, and we'll get to that. So Caterpillar stepped out of the game, but I want to tell you about this engine that just recently they made, and it's a D13. It's a Caterpillar D13, a 13 liter, and I'll kind of want to show you 13 liter engine. Let me find it. Here it is, the new 13. Caterpillar unveils. Here, let me bring this up here, and we'll share this. Let me share this real quick. And this is not this is not off subject. This is still on the same subject. So Caterpillar unveils a new 13 liter engine platform for heavy duty off-road, off-road applications. Now, I just mentioned that they stopped making trucks that were on highway, and now they're, they've always, the reason why they did it is because they had enough work off highway that they didn't care about producing trucks on highway. They were like, let them figure it out. We don't have to compete in this market, and we're not going to. That's basically what Caterpillar did. So Caterpillar exited the market. They got so much work, as I mentioned, off highway, so it didn't matter to them anyway. But I wanted to go back to here. Let me go back to this share screen. Remember when I said when Detroit started coming out, when Detroit came out with their DD15, that some of the designs were being taken? I want you to take a look. Let me see if I can zoom in. Zoom in on that. If you look at this engine here, this fuel rail is very similar to the DD15. Okay, they go with the same pump here at the bottom. Common rail system. Cummins did the same thing. Let me see if I can let's zoom in on this right here. All right. Open this up. So this is a Caterpillar engine that just recently released. Now, this sucker's pushing some horsepower, like some real horsepower. And as I mentioned, this is not an on-highway engine. It's a off-highway. But since they're able to produce engines with less stricter standards, the output of this sucker is, I mean, guys on the road right now would love this power. It's the range on it. It's got the MK engineered Caterpillar standards. It's the C13D. Offers 8 power ratings, 456 to 690 horsepower. That's crazy. 690 horsepower. That's some strong power right there. Let me look at some other information. So what I'm getting at is this fuel rail is very similar to Detroit's design when they came out with the DD15. And of course, the fuel pump is down here. The setup is pretty much very similar. Even the fuel filter housing. Why does this happen? Okay, why do they look so similar? When I discussed earlier the process of creating these monsters of engines and designing them, one of the peoples, of course, are going to be dealing with the fuel. That's going to be, the engineer is going to be the combustion engineer. That's their title. The combustion engineers specialize in the design of fuel injection systems, combustion chambers, air-fuel mixture process, and ensure optimal combustion, which directly affects fuel efficiency and emissions. These engineers work together with a lot of... These engineers work closely with the manufacturers of these fuel systems, and Bosch is one of them. Bosch worked closely with Detroit in developing their system, and all of the manufacturers pretty much work with the same, which is it's pretty interesting because they try to be like, hey, you can't use my idea, and Detroit called it the ACRS, which was the common rail system with the amplification feature. After fuel is pressurized in the rail, an additional amplification of pressure occurs at the injector itself before the fuel is injected into the combustion chamber. Okay, so they try to like say, hey, you can't use this style fuel system because of course this was my idea, and a lot of the other manufacturers work around this by just adding a little bit different. Like Cummins come out with high pressure system. If you look at their systems now, they back then they had dual overhead cams, one driving directly to the fuel injectors. Now that they have a common rail system similar to the DD15, they eliminated a cam. And it's good to eliminate some of these moving parts. Less moving parts is going to be a little bit helps the engine run a little bit more reliable. So Cummins came out with high pressure system. As you can see, Caterpillar did as well. So very, very common system. Now the way, as I mentioned, they worked around it is because they would add it. Like for example, Caterpillar says, hey, we're going to use your same style fuel system, but we're adding this to it, or in combination with this. This is what makes it our idea. So that's why they were able to work around it. And honestly, I don't think technology should be that and I mean, maybe within like, if we're trying to create an engine that is less wasteful, I think we should all work together to try to make it. Because if that happened, imagine how even more fast we could evolve. So Detroit really changed the game. It really changed how diesel engines are made. They went to a high pressure system, create higher combustions, more power. As you can see, other platforms started taking this step as well. The same with the EGR cooler position. If you look at the most newest Cummins that's coming out, they're changing their EGR cooler. Now they're putting it on top of the turbo. Detroit went away completely with a VGT style turbo, which is a turbo being controlled by electronic control, which is not a really good idea, because whatever control or whatever hardware that's electronic that's going to be bolted to a turbo is extremely susceptible to failure because of heat. Extremely high heat on a turbo. You got to understand, a turbo is the way a turbo work is being the pressure coming out of the spent energy, as we mentioned earlier. When the diesel engine is pushing out all this wasted energy, it's a lot of pressure coming out of that exhaust. It goes into a turbine made out of the same exhaust piping. All this exhaust piping, as you can imagine, has to capture all this pressure coming in coming out of this exhaust, coming out of the head, and capture it all, spin it, create power. And that's why turbos are more used on Detroit engines, on diesel engines, because they're more efficient compared to a supercharger. Sorry, it's been going on for a while, already going on for a whole hour. So I'm trying to wrap this up. Sound like Biden now. Guess because it's the end of the day. Let me take a break before I start sounding. I didn't mean to get political on you guys. Don't get too bent out of shape. Let me see what y'all's talking about here. Justin says trucking has been declining since 2017. You seen that? That's how long it's been going on. I agree. I guess COVID was just a fluke. Justin. All right, I appreciate. I don't mean to laugh so hard. I'm sorry. But Justin said that the Cowboys game is going to start in 25 minutes, and I mean, I don't mean to be cruel, but I care less about the Cowboys. I care less about any sports nowadays. And I didn't used to be like this. I used to actually like sports. I did used to like sports a lot. But I guess the energy it takes to get involved with especially the Cowboys. So I guess don't blame me for not being such a sports fanatic. You got to understand. I mean, I'm born and raised in Dallas. I did live through a Super Bowl, and I am still a Cowboys fan, but it's just like one of those things, like kind of like just like one of those people that you just know you just don't. It's just healthy for you to not be around. You don't want to be around them. You know what I mean? That's my relationship with the Cowboys. I just don't understand. I don't want to go onto a rant with them. I don't want to go on a rant with them. And I feel sorry for our fans, because we do deserve everybody. I guess I shouldn't say that. I mean, every city deserves a winner. Every city deserves a win. But I guess one reason why I don't put so much energy in that, because I'd rather put my energy into something else. Maybe finding out more about how these fuel systems developed. 35,000 psi was unheard of when they came out with the DD15. That was unheard of. So when they did that, of course they changed the main bearings, everything. People just had to adapt to this new technology that's coming out. And then everybody at first was like, nah. But then look at it. Even Caterpillar, their newest engines coming out with high pressure fuel systems. They're putting EGR valves on top, EGR coolers, and relocating EGR coolers, getting rid of VGT style turbos. And I was just leaving off with VGT style turbos. VGT style turbo, I know Volvo still comes out with those, and so does PACCAR, but man, those are just awful turbos, and it's just too much strain for it to have veins inside a turbo. And that's what a VGT style turbo does. It makes a big turbo, but it puts veritable veins inside of it so they can adjust the veins with an electronic control to kind of make the turbo small and large. That way you can create boost at lower RPMs faster. And it's a good concept. You know, they do that on smaller Mercedes vehicles. They do that on smaller turbo applications. But when you're dealing with semi trucks, and they're, you know, so many miles that they're putting on them, those devices over time they do fail. Everything fails on the after treatment system. Everything is going to have to be replaced on the after treatment system eventually. That's just they're not designed for the million miles. The million mile is designed on the engine if you keep up with maintenance, but everything that's bolted on it is not going to go a million miles. I mean, that goes with everything, even the starters, alternators, radiators. I mean, you name it. Anything that bolts onto the engine, they're just talking about internally. This engine should last a million miles if operated correctly. And that's all everyone's goal. I didn't mean to laugh too hard about your cowboy comment. Hey, appreciate that super chat. First super chat of the evening. Thank you very much. We have, hello Adam, I have a check engine. SCR NOx callus efficiency is below threshold on a Volvo D13. Replaced everything around SCR. No other DTCs. What do you think? Trucks run good otherwise. Okay, so we got a SCR NOx, which is, you know, below threshold. You said you changed out everything. What did you replace? Now, how many miles are on the truck? Let me know how many miles are on the truck. That's one of the questions I like to ask, because at 400,000 miles on a D13 Volvo suggests that you replace the filters. Okay, replace the DPF filters. Excuse me, DPF filters. Okay, and don't bake and blow them. A lot of people bake and blow these filters, which is no longer acceptable by Detroit. And the reason why they do that is because the baking process can be flawed, because it won't. There could be what they call is soot packing, which is basically just packed soot and the filter, and not all the time is the bacon blowing, is thoroughly cleaning it. So now they use a solution based way of cleaning these filters, mostly in house, or they just have a remanufactured filter ready to go off the shelf, which is what they recommend instead of toying around trying to get these things clean. So has that filter been changed at 400,000? How many miles are on it? How do you operate this truck? Do you idle it a lot? If you do idle it a lot, this is going to give you that type of fault. Okay, what parts did you replace? Okay, now you don't always have to replace parts. It's very important to understand. You need to troubleshoot these problems. This is very important when we have these type of codes. There's always a pattern that you can recognize. These systems are going to all work the same. But if you have issues with like maintenance, say DEF filter hasn't been replaced, or if I have a lot of idling, if I hadn't had these filters replaced at 400,000, if I'm going past that, if I hadn't had an oil change, or if I had any failures in the past, if I had an EGR cooler fail or something like that, these all items need to be investigated before coming up with a solution, because anybody could try to give you a solution that's had this problem pop up with them before, but not all the time the solution is going to be the same. There's going to be some problems that happen differently on each truck. So that's why we ask these type of questions and look at the codes, if there's any additional codes. Do you have a and I don't mean to ask, too harshly, but this is good information that we need to know to help give you a better diagnostic. these codes can pop up. They can have DEF buildup. You can have DEF buildup where your DEF dozer nozzle is. If there's buildup there, then it's possible that the DEF is not spraying in the SCR chamber correctly and creating that efficiency. There could be a problem with the NOx sensors, possibly, depending on your after treatment system. If the filter has not been replaced in the 400,000 miles, or if it's been pushed past that, say for example you have high mileage, it's possible that you can have an issue with the DOC, which is part of the one box, or just depends on what type of system you have. And since we're talking about the after treatment system on the Volvo, I kind of wanted to wrap this up, but there's just so much information to get out on this on this particular subject. So the after treatment system that Volvo first came out with was kind of like, it was filters stacked on top of each other, like they were vertically stacked. So they had the DOC on top and a DOC and a DPF at the bottom, or vice versa. No, that's correct. And so you would have to take this kind of, it looked like a big can grill or something. And it was, some trucks still use it, but what did they do? They adopted the one box system. When Detroit came out, when DD15 came out, they came out not only with the high pressure system and a whole totally different design, gear train in the back compared to the front, just completely different design. They also came out with their own one box system, which is the after treatment system in one box. So if you look at the after treatment systems now, they're all similar. They're all adapted the same one box system style. Volvo did, Packard, we also see it with Cummins as well. They're all developed a one box system. They want to make it a little bit more simple. So that's another issue that could be popping up with your truck on this particular code. So if your DOC, let me know what how much miles are on this truck. Let me see here. Oh, we got, I think you commented here. There you are. Here we go. Let me see. I baked DPF, but otherwise I replaced dozer valve, after treatment dozer module. DPF pump is all good. SCR system on tech tool testing, it says it's all good. Truck has 580 miles, low engine hours. Okay, so it's not a high mileage truck. I would suggest replacing the filter instead of baking. And yes, mine is a one box. Okay, I would suggest replacing the filter because, as I mentioned, the one box or the baking method is not always recommended. 500,000 miles is not too high. You said you have low hours, so you're not idling often. Did you check when you said that you tested your system? Now there's different tests that you can do to ensure that your NOx sensors are reading correctly. And you changed the after treatment dozer, so there was no clogged in the SCR system, so you don't have excessive DEF buildup. Did you do the test that allows you to activate the dozer to see how much DEF is being dosed out? Now there's tests to ensure that there's a correct amount of dosage, and there's also tests to see if your NOx sensors are reading correctly. 500,000 miles, check your EGR cooler. As I mentioned earlier, the EGR cooler plays a vital role in the after treatment system as well. It recirculates that exhaust gas, but over time, and you're going to see that right around the time where they suggest you replace your DPF filter, is they get clogged up. They can get clogged up, and when you have a clogged EGR cooler, of course, it's just going to cause more problems downstream. Yes, I have an APU on the truck. I changed box NOx sensors. Open the one box myself. Everything is clean. Yes, I checked dozer, and the cup is good. Okay. So if everything is looking good and you're still getting that low efficiency fault, when you do replace sensors, be sure, if you're using Tech Tool, be sure to reset parameters, because what I noticed with Tech Tool, which is Volvo, is that you have to reset the sensor readings because the values are saved on the computer, and over time what they'll do is they program these ECMs to wear with the or adjust with the sensors. So if you install a new sensor, it's not going to automatically reset itself in its reading. So if you did replace some sensors, if you have Tech Tool, that particular code should have all the troubleshooting steps. And if you follow all those steps and everything is testing good, is what you're saying, it's possible there's a one box issue, or check your engine's EGR cooler and all your sensors there as well. In those troubleshooting procedures, it's gonna highlight those items to check as well. The sensors on the engine, intake sensor, looking for intake leaks, making sure your air filter is clean, making sure that everything is working sound upstream. There's balance test, idle balance test, compression test, making sure everything, valve adjustments are correct. If that engine is sound at 580,000 miles, valves should have been adjusted. Overhead valves should have been adjusted. You can do a compression test if you have Tech Tool to see if there's any compression difference without having to pull anything. I did the restart. Also, when I replaced NOx sensor, also truck only has this code when pulling up a hill or loaded. Okay, good information. Otherwise, empty code disappear. Good information. Okay, let me tell you something about a loaded truck. I'm afraid that the SCR bad. One box is bad. But thanks, I would definitely change the DPF fish. Okay, before you do that, okay, now you're saying that you're noticing it under the load. Now there's a big difference, okay, guys. This goes back to drivers knowing their truck. Okay, if you notice an issue empty, that issue is gonna become even larger loaded. If I have a check engine and low power, empty, there's no reason why I should load that truck. That's like, hey man, I just sprung my ankle. I don't know if I fractured it or not, but you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and load up myself before I gotta walk home on it, and I'll see what happens. You know? No, you don't do that. And I know it's very challenging because we're measured about how much we do. We're measured about what we do, how much we're going to make, whatever. We got to pull these loads. Brokers don't care. Brokers are going to put all that pressure on you. They want that load moved. They don't care if your truck breaks down in front of the shipper. As long as you send them that BOL, they don't care. Anyway, so if it's pulling uphill, what I would suggest you do is, if you have impact, go through the troubleshooting steps, because the troubleshooting steps is going to make sure everything's running correctly upstream. When you're going up a hill, you're putting a very big strain on the truck. The truck is, that's when it's going to be pushing out the max force it can possibly do. So if you have valves out of adjustment, filters that are dirty, whether air filter, if you have dirty sensors that are not reading your intake correctly, or the EGR valve correctly, EGR differential pressure correctly, if you have anything where that truck is not running sound, of course you're going to create more soot. So the soot, you're not going to see it come out of the tailpipe, but it's going to go through that after treatment system, and that one box is only designed to take on so much soot. So if if it's dumping more soot because you have either valve adjustments, an intake leak, something that's creating that engine, because any kind of imbalance in fuel or air is going to make that engine create more soot. So when you're going up that hill and you're creating more soot because something's going on with something internally, or something like I mentioned, any other things that I mentioned, CAC leak, boost leak, intake leak, all these steps are covered in that particular code that needed to be checked. If that truck is not running sound, of course it's going to create more soot than that one box is designed for. So back to your question, just make sure that it's troubleshot correctly before throwing too many parts at it. If you're in the DFW area, if you're coming through Dallas, I know Dallas could be out of the way sometimes. The freight's not paying great, but we got decent restaurants. So you come down for a visit, We'll get your truck checked out. We'll definitely get that problem figured out for you. Give us a shout, 972-225-3017. I know you're over the road and you probably can't get it done, or if you can't come through here, and I hope my information was helpful to you. If not, find somebody up there that has knowledge on troubleshooting these after treatment systems. Guys, you know, there's not easy solutions besides knowing what's going on with the system and knowing how to work with it. Okay. Right now, there's not, the solutions out there are not sound when it comes to the way that these trucks are developed. They're not making it easy to make these eliminations. It's not legal. You don't want to do that to your truck. You have damages to your truck because they're doing these hack deletes where they're using old software to overwrite newer software. It even creates more problems because it's dumping more fuel. And as I mentioned, these engines were designed with all these different factors in place. So when you go to tuning it with somebody that just has a laptop in a pickup that doesn't even have a shop, you know, they don't care if your truck's gonna break down, you know, 5 years from now. I mean, it's your investment. Now, I know that there's options out there that's probably gonna be, you know, sold to anybody out there, and what I'm letting you know, what I've seen is, in our experience, is that over time that these hack deletes can cause some problems. So, and it can be very, very complicated. Got some more. Okay, you got some more info for me. I did a valve adjustment also. I did it every year. Only left EGR sensor. I would change it too, but I was thinking to bring it to your shop. Honestly, I don't trust most mechanics about this. One mechanic told me that it's normal thing for Volvos on that mileage. Well, if everything is working correctly and everything's sound, and you don't have a boost leak and your sensors aren't clogged, EGR cooler is not clogged, you don't have any exhaust leaks or boost leaks and intake leaks, then yeah, it's possible. It is possible that the one box could be on its way out. It's possible. It is possible. And for someone to say, hey, that's normal, well, I mean, it might be normal for it to be that it's time that it's war. You know, usually they only call out for the DPF to be replaced, not the one box at that mileage. But you know, if everything is sound, bring it by. Yeah, bring it by. If you want to bring it by, we'll look over everything. We can do a boost test. We can check everything. We can check your EGR cooler. We can check all that for you. I appreciate your super chat. And if you can make it by. We'll be more than happy to help you. I know these problems can be a headache, and that's why we're here. We have the experience. We see it repetitively. We see the different problems, and these are part of the troubleshooting steps that we incorporate when we receive these trucks. We want to know everything that's been done. Don't think, hey, I'm not going to tell you everything about it because I don't want to help you. But that's like going to the doctor and not telling them everything that's wrong with you and everything that you consumed. Even if you know you consume something bad, and say you consume something bad and you have this crazy side effect, but you don't tell, oh, I didn't do that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that could have done that to me. So I appreciate good conversation. I hope I was able to help you with that. If you are in the area, be sure to give us a shout out. I definitely want to be able to help you out with that problem. And the good thing, it's only happening on heels, so it's not. It's possible that is something to do either with a boost leak, sensor, something. And these are all things that we'd have to isolate with trucks. And when you say you don't trust mechanics, you know, mechanics are trying to find the problem. Okay, we do want to find the problem. Trust me, we're not somebody that doesn't want to fix your problems. Some mechanics are bad. Some mechanics shouldn't be in the field. If they don't really enjoy trying to figure out the problems, and they're not really trying to understand what's going on, then yeah, they should probably be out of it. I mean, some guys rather just change parts. There's not everybody can troubleshoot. You go to a shop, there's not going to be everybody that wants to work on these after treatment systems. It's a mind puzzle. It's a chess game. I wouldn't say a chess game. I guess it would say it's like figuring out chess, you know. You have to understand the system. And I'm not putting down techs that don't understand it. Some techs, it's not their field. Some guys are a lot stronger in other areas. There's more than after treatment. There's more than just after treatment systems on a diesel truck, on a semi truck. There's a lot of things to cover on them. After treatment systems are just one. Appreciate that question. If you got anybody else on the super chat before I get close to ending this chat this evening, let me know. Hit me up on the super chat. Appreciate everybody that's joined us this evening. Make sure you let me know where you're watching from and if you got any questions or if you're not tied up on the game. I didn't mean to put down any sports. I do enjoy sports. I just do not, this channel and help and trying to get the shop and keeping the shop rolling and keeping everybody in play, or just keep everybody moving smoothly. It's very challenging for me already, and if I try to watch a game, sometimes I fall asleep. And I've been to football games and they're very exciting, or any sports event, but I have more fun kind of like at the venue than I do actually, watching the game. Just because if the game doesn't go your way, it's kind of like losing money at a casino. Not that I gamble. Thank you, Adam. I sure will stop by at the shop when I am in the Dallas area. I appreciate that. Good chat with you, man. Good chatting with you. Good chatting with you. Let me see who else is out here. Justin, he's already on the game. Justin's already on the game. Let me see what they were talking about. Oh man, we got a few comments in. I didn't get everybody on the comments here. Sorry about that. Let's see here. Crypto, I got some. Yeah, we got some. Give us a shout. 972-225-3017. Infusion Acert. What is that? What do you think about the 2000? Oh, that was your question earlier. But you know what? Your profile and your name reminds me of what I feel like the next step in emissions control is going to be. Hydrogen. I mentioned that before. I feel like they're going to do a combination of hydrogen, and hydrogen is definitely going to make a big difference. And they're going to make it where you're not going to store it in a tank. It's just, you're going to have like a unit, like an APU, that creates the hydrogen out of water, and it kind of sprays it into your intake before it's part of the intake process. There's going to take a lot of development in place, but I feel like that's going to be the next step. Oh, excuse me. Especially since we're probably going to be moving over to nuclear power. I don't know how fast it's going to happen. I mentioned that before, that we're going to definitely need nuclear power. But it's becoming more talked about now, how nuclear power is going to be more in place. And the reason why I bring that up is because once nuclear power is in place, with the combination of hydrogen and everything that we already know, that's going to drive fuel prices down. It's just going to create these trucks to run a little bit more cleaner. With hydrogen, it's not only going to create a cleaner combustion, but it's also going to create a way that it's going to be able to clean the filters as well. So I don't understand why hydrogen hasn't been more adopted. There are trucks that have tried to use it. There's companies out there, but they don't get the support. It's all competitive out there. Everything's just so competitive. It's all about capitalists. Robert C. Norris. I was looking at the government. Robert C. Norris, if you're still with us, I like your profile. Got the Marlboro Man logo on there. Pretty sick. The government telling us what we can and can't do with our trucks. Well, the government voted. The people voted on that. They wanted this. The people voted on having all this emissions. Everybody got together and were like, "Hey, these trucks are being wasteful," and that's a whole topic on its own. I understand it's a very touchy subject. Nobody wants to be told what to do. The government is not telling you what to do. They're telling the manufacturers what to do. So then the manufacturers are having to produce products for us. They don't give us the availability to buy a truck with the non-emissions on it. They don't make them anymore unless you go with an older truck. So the government is pushing the regulations. The government that were driven by the people. I haven't really looked deeply into the Clean Air Act, on how it was developed. But I honestly thought it was, I want to say it was voted on by the people because people felt like they was being so wasteful. And when we talk about efficiency on the engines, 40% compared to now, which I didn't get to, we're going to have to probably do another session on this particular subject, because now engines are, how efficient are engines now? They're okay, only 10% increase. Okay, so I shouldn't say only, because it's still a lot. It's a definitely a big increase. So instead of capturing 40% of the truck's energy, now it's up to 50%, which is still an increase. Okay, and I believe it's going to go even further. I know that they're drawing back some of these regulations, and depending on what our administration looks like in the next few years, is going to probably either delay it or just kind of hold back on what's already out there. I don't know if they're going to roll it back all the way. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know if they're going to roll it back all the way. If they do, I don't know. You know, who knows? I doubt if they're going to roll it back all the way. There's too much clean activists around, or support around it. And, you know, of course, everyone wants a clean environment, and there's just a lot of controversy out there about it. You know, other countries aren't doing this and then that and the other, you know. But I mean, if you live down on it, if you're down on it and you're like, hey, let me go down to the cities where let me go down to the ports where they do got a lot of trucks down there that aren't running emissions, that don't care about emissions, and let me see if there really are smog. You're gonna see smog. I mean, it is there. Whether you want it or not, you know, it's up to you. When you see people rolling coal, you know, it does seem kind of a little bit wasteful. And I'm not trying to hate on you guys. You know, it's fun. Horsepower is fun. I grew up with horsepower. I love power. I love horsepower. And there's nothing like internal combustion engine. If you ever been to, I don't mean to get off of the subject, but I mean, I am really a fan of internal combustion engines. I really like. I remember the first time I went to a drag race. I don't know if you guys ever been to like a Top Fuel drag race. Your mind cannot process the amount of power it's like thousands of horsepower and it's like an explosion happening in your face. And to be able to capture all that energy, I can imagine how much energy is wasted, but the energy that is captured to run that car down that 1/8 of a mile or 1/4 of a mile at 200 miles an hour. Okay, imagine how much energy is actually being wasted, that's spent. And when we're able to evolve more and more with technology, the more and more we're going to be able to capture this energy. And once we're able to harness all this energy, man, it's going to be nuts, the amount of power that we're going to have. Honestly, I saw, and I wanted to still kind of go over y'all guys' comments, but there's so much to cover. I might have to, got somebody watching from a hellhole city in Georgia. Why you got it? It could be worse, man. Wicked. Could be worse, man. The devil went down to Georgia looking for a soul to steal. He never left. Well, the devil was an angel once before. And I'm not quoting anything. This is just trying to look at the brighter side of things. The devil was an angel, one of God's angels once before. I understood that. If he never left and you feel like you're too close to him, then maybe learn from his mistakes and still shine where you're at and keep on moving. It's not easy, especially for men. And I don't mean to be, non-feminist, or I don't want to go on to that route, but I really feel like it's men don't have the rights we used to have before. It's about equality, but it's to a point where the imbalance is just way off. But I just want you guys to know you're not alone. We're all working through this together. It's a different society. It's a different world. But just stay strong. Don't feel like you're lost. The ways that we were brought up, whether traditionally and not acceptable now in the modern world, doesn't make you a bad person or doesn't make you a toxic person. Society's views on us, on our traditional style views, is what's being taught to kind of weave our traditional values out. So it's very challenging. It's very challenging. Don't feel like you're alone. Don't feel like you're alone, and don't feel like it's your fault. Don't feel like it's because it's just a societal change that hopefully, I don't know how, I don't think it can be reversed, but you gotta understand, as I mentioned earlier, distorted thought patterns. Distorted thought patterns can also be pushed on us by society's beliefs. Just because society believes in a certain way will make us feel like our thoughts are distorted. But at the same time, you got to recognize it. You got to recognize it. Skana. And I okay, you're talking about next reversing global warming is his title. Let me see what you're talking about. What's your comment? I was kind of wrapping this up, but this is too interesting. Let's keep on moving. Let me see what you're talking about over here. What you talking about? Let me pull that back up. Okay, Scana, and I'm probably saying it incorrectly, but that's a hell of a beast. We don't have it here in North America. That's why I don't talk about it much, but I keep hearing about this Scana. And I had somebody work with us in the past. 750 horsepower. Let me look at this beast. Isn't this a V configuration, or is it an inline six? Only reason why I don't research this engine is because, like I said, we don't have it in America. We don't have this engine in America, but let me pull it up right now. I want to say it's a V pattern, isn't it? Or a W. No, it couldn't be a W. It'd be too big. Here it is. Is it an inline six? Is it an inline six? It looks like an inline six. Inline six, yep. The reason why I was questioning it, because I thought I saw this engine that was a V pattern, but it is an inline six. And what were you saying about this engine? 720 horsepower, no DEF filter, passes emissions without it. Really interesting. No DPF filter, passes emissions without it. You see how these engines and other areas, which are emissions, are a lot stricter in Europe than they are in the United States. These guys are pushing engines. Are you sure? Zero emission. Okay, this is the Marine. This is the Marina. This is the Marine engine. Is it on? Let me look for the on highway. On highway. Emissions. Let's see what you're talking about. Are you sure about that? Okay, that's interesting. So we got a viewer says that the Scana inline 6 13 liter, it meets the standards, and you said zero emission with no. Oh, it's using biofuels, oil filtration. Scana engines are available on a range of emission certifications. So okay. I'll have to look into it more, but is that off of diesel? Scana proven after treatment system ensuring exhaust gases released on minimum. It says it's still using it. It says it's a SCR system. SCR system is still considered a DPF style system. I would have to look more into this information. As I mentioned, This engine is not in our. It's not over here. No DPF. It says there. You're right. Correct. No DPF equals no regen. So interesting. Emissions control. Interesting. Okay, it's still using the SCR system, but okay. So there's no DPF filter, but it's still using the SCR system. So it's the SCR system without the DPF. Interesting. Is proven after treatment system ensuring exhaust gases are released with minimum nitrogen oxide. The nitrogen oxide is one of the contaminants that they are required to cut down. And a urea-based additive, AdBlue diesel exhaust fuel injected into the exhaust covers the toxic nitrogen oxide into harmless water and nitrogen gas. You know what? That's crazy. I just talked about the nitrogen. So I bet you they're going to end up recycling it later on, and probably not now, but they're going to end up recycling this nitrogen, this harmless water and nitrogen gas back into the engine again to make it even more cleaner. SCANA SCR is easy to handle and very reliable without affecting torque and power. SCANA EGR, still using the EGR. SCANA EGR, excuse me if I'm not pronouncing that right. SCANA EGR. Exhaust gas recirculation partly reuses exhaust gases, which is nothing new, enabling reduced NOx levels and a strong environment performance. Wow, crazy. Appreciate that information. This is another reason why I love this channel so much, is because there's so much information out there we don't even know. And you know this because where are you from? Reversing global warming. Thank you for sharing that. Where are you from? If you're still with us, I appreciate that information. That was just some information I got in from chat, and probably sound ignorant because, as I mentioned, we don't see this. We don't have this engine on. We don't have this engine, the SCANA. But the SCANA has a SCR system with no DPF. What's going to end up happening is they're going to end up adopting, all the other platforms are going to adopt this. Watch. All the other platforms are going to adopt this. And this one is a V8. This one says a V8, isn't it? Let me look at this. It looks like a V8. This is a V8. It says a V and an 8 on it. But I just don't see a lot of images. Let me click on one of these. And what I'm talking about when I say V8 or inline 6, I mean, if a diesel engine or a gasoline, regular gasoline, or a variety of engines come in either inline 6, which means the pistons are in line. It can either be a 4-cylinder or a V8, which is a V configuration, self-explanatory. And that's the only reason why I ask, because it's interesting to see such a large engine. And that's one reason why they make the, what is on my nose? Anyway, an inline 6 engine is going to be smaller, so it's easier to build around. And this SCANA is actually a V8. It looks like it. Yeah, 90-degree V8, 4-stroke. So V configuration, big deal. What does that mean, Adam? It means that's a big ass engine, man. I mean, we don't have that over here. I think those SCANAs, what are they putting them in? What are they putting SCANAs in? Cab overs? That's a large engine. That's a big engine. What's the displacement? 13 liter V8. So it's got two extra cylinders. Interesting. Displacement. This one's a 16 liter. I'm just on SCANA's website, and we're talking about what after treatment, what emissions control standards has done to the development of diesel engines. And now I got a guy Reversing Global Warming is his name. Let me know about this scanner. You want to adjust valves on the Cummins I would say every 100,000 miles, once a year. Once a year. Appreciate everybody that's joined us. Make sure you hit that like. If you want to use that super chat, hit that super chat. I'm probably going to wrap this up, but I'm still looking at this scanner. This it looks like they make it in the inline 6 and the V-shaped pattern. But yeah, they make a V8, which is 2 extra pistons. Very be a stout engine. But anyway, guys, I'm probably gonna wrap this up. See, make sure I got anybody else on here that I didn't cover everybody's comment. If you want to hit that super chat, you probably guys are wrapped up in these games. Let me see. How to tell if a fuel injector is bad on a Cummins. Usually you're probably gonna have low power. Maybe check engine lights, hopefully. Oh, let me see. Oh man, there's so many comments that I didn't get to. Cowboys game about to start. I think that's where I started laughing. Trucking has been declined since 2007. Justin's on the game right now. I've been burned. Okay, this is a guy that was looking for truck buying. He was like, I've been burned by buying vehicles online and not inspecting the vehicles in person. I definitely don't want to go through that with a semi. Definitely don't. I was researching the Waco Colt with David. Crazy stuff. The Waco Colt. I didn't know that. Oh, the Waco Colt. That was a long time ago. Where are you in DFW? Where were you in DFW when that happened? I was young. I wonder, is it the Colt that the SWAT took over out there in Waco? And that's just what you find on the news. There's I think he was pushing his religion on these people. I don't remember that. I was young. I don't recall exactly. I did go to the military. So I was out of Texas for a few years, maybe 5 years, but other than that, I've been here. Appreciate that comment. Says I'm doing a great job. Appreciate that. Justin, he's probably on the game. He said, I had one of the last cat motors in 2008. Yep. That was a decent motor. I wasn't really a fan of the last motors that were trying to meet emission standards. As I mentioned, the 60 series, doing all their bolt-on stuff and creating just more headaches. Entourage in the house, appreciate you joining us. Canada. These port strikes. When I saw Canada, or when I think about Canada, I think about the port strikes, and then we had the port strikes. Sorry, I was just trying to fix my collar. Then we had the port strikes. I don't know if you guys recall the port strikes here, but I'm gonna tell you what's funny. The leader of the port strikes was, and I don't mean, bro, if you're gonna ask for more money, don't come out with Cartiers. This dude had Cartier shades. Those are $2,000 iframes. Like, you don't need that excessive. And 2 times I saw him with 2 different gold chains on, coming out asking for more money. I mean, that's not a good look. It's not a good look. You should have came out a little bit more professional. Y'all probably are right. Y'all probably going to work things out. I don't know. But coming out and pushing for more money when you're with Cartiers on, come on, man. And the type of money that you guys are making, I heard is really well. And honestly, they're going to be pushing more to electronic, and maybe not, hopefully not, because it is going to be pretty wasteful to make all these batteries. So hopefully you guys find a balance. I know a lot of people that would love that job, love that type of paying job. So be careful what you ask for. It's very interesting, because when you look at our position as a country, we have people complaining about, and I'm not a port worker. I'm not against port workers, and I'm just looking from the outside, okay? And this is basically how it works. I mean, you look at a mechanic, you're gonna look at from the outside right away. You're gonna think we're crooks, I mean, so when I look at, I'm just letting you know what we see from the outside. When we see port workers, and you see an environment where So many people are rushing over here to be in our country to work and to be able to get that opportunity to make that type of money, a quarter of that money or a half of that money. Could you imagine how they think about when they see that? Dang, if I could make that much money. And then we got the other side of the table, or the other group complaining about, I want more money, or I'm not going to do it no more. I mean, that's really crazy. It's really crazy to try to take that into perspective, because the amount of people that came in here, the amount of people that continue to come here since the beginning, want to work. They want to do that type of work. And it's going to get to a point, not maybe here in the near future, but once we realize how important humanity is, once humans, it's really sad, but humans don't really appreciate humanity and value humans right now. I don't know why it's like that right now, but I think it's going to get to a point, maybe in the next 20, maybe in the next 30, maybe in the next 40 years, maybe in the next 50. It could be another 100 years. Who knows? When humans really start to appreciate and value humanity. And when that happens, borders aren't going to matter. Borders aren't going to fucking matter. It's not going to matter. But I understand right now it does. I remember right now it does. And I'm not saying, hey, I'm not advocating for open borders. I'm not advocating for that. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right that we have so many illegals coming in and not doing it properly and making our cities dangerous. I'm not for that. Don't get it twisted. Okay. I'm just trying to say that we need to still work together and figure things out. But I'm not saying, hey, you know what? We want all these people coming in and not doing the right thing. I'm not saying that I want that. So hopefully you guys didn't take that the wrong way. Anyway, way off subject. I had the twin turbo. That truck had balls after I cut it. The after treatment garbage. Bruptown, you say, laugh out loud. Y'all destroyed the trucking community. Bruptown. What does he mean by that? I guess you were having a conversation with someone else. What was Bruptown? Detroit 60 Series 7.7 or 12.7 all day, every day. I told you. Everybody loves that 60 Series pre-emissions. EGRs are junk. Yeah, they can be. One day I will be able to. Oh, we got that one already. Alfredo up in Texas. What's up? North Carolina in the house. Georgia. Another Georgia. Sorry. All right, got a question here. Engine warning light comes on when Jake brake switch is activated. Okay, could be a bad Jake brake. Could be a bad Jake brake solenoid. Could be a worn harness. Check the code, see what it says. Alfredo says, well, I've been told do PMs every 75K. Wow. Alfredo, that's a high mileage for PMs, man. 75K. Definitely do oil samples, oil analysis to ensure you're not overusing that oil, man. Where are you riding? Where are you driving to? And 75,000 miles doesn't mean do not check that truck for 75,000 miles. I would still definitely check that truck out, man. This is why those extended intervals, I'm not really big on those extended intervals, because people just, I don't have to check this truck for 75,000 miles. I don't have to check this truck for almost a year. No, not good practice. Bruptown, or how come though? So this is why he shot at Bruptown. Why would you say that Bruptown destroyed trucking community? That's interesting. Or I don't know. Could be just a troll. Cowboy game started and later, y'all. Oh, he left already. This is where I laughed when he said Jerry Jones knows he has delusional fan base. That is a pretty engine. What engine? You're probably talking about the scanner. That's what I laughed about earlier. I saw that comment where you said Jerry Jones about Jerry Jones. Hey, boss, I changed the drive brakes and wheel seal started leaking. Could it be that I didn't adjust the brakes right or the tire was torqued right? Okay. So you changed the brakes on the drive tire and the wheel started to leak. Wheel seal started to leak. Could it be that I didn't adjust the brakes right? If you didn't adjust the brakes right and it drug the brakes, maybe it could probably call that seals the leak. Possibly, yes. By the way, I watch your videos on changing brakes and wheel seals over and over. So blessed on those. Thank you. I do plan on doing some more videos like that. I appreciate your feedback. How do you tell? Oh, I got that question already. Got that guy. I'm bad about idling engines. I rarely shut the truck off. I understand if you live in the truck and you sleep in the truck, yeah, it's hard. Why don't you try to get an APU or hopefully, you know, I wish they would come out with more electric options. And it would be even nicer if they would pay for them or at least give you some kind of assistance. Because I'm telling you, man, these manufacturers are just, and and it's tough. It's a tough balance because these guys are trying to meet these standards, and the guys got all these different stuff that pops up when it comes to logistics. You know, a lot of these manufacturers had to relocate factories, and it's probably going to happen even more with the who we have coming up into office, which I'm excited about. We're going to see what the difference is. You know, we'll see what happens. I would like to do more manufacturing in the United States. It sounds good. It sounds solid. It sounds good for us. It looks like it would be more work. We do need a lot more organization. As I mentioned about when I mentioned about nuclear, I read an article that Google is going to be outsourcing or looking for nuclear plants to power their AI. AI is gonna continue to evolve, and it's gonna demand even more power. There's gonna be a point where we have to go to nuclear power to be sustainable and to be safe. Because right now we're not in that. We're not there. I just got a one box installed in a 2018 Cascadia. Freaking thing cost me $14K. Yep. It does. They're not cheap. Sorry, getting a little fatigued. One mechanic told me. All right, I'm not getting all my comments. Here. Where are they all at? Oh, okay. Those comments haven't came in yet, but here we go. How often should you change? All right, already got that. America was founded by illegal aliens, criminals. Now the same people who had those illegal ancestors are complaining about modern illegal immigrants. They are hypocrites. Illegal alien criminals created America. The crimes committed now by illegal immigrants are not a drop in the bucket to the crimes committed by the original illegal alien criminals who started America are committing. That's a very interesting view. Hello from New Jersey. I have a problem with the air compressor. Minority Report future is coming. Is incoming. Well, I mean, I didn't really want to get too much into political stuff, but I mean, it's interesting. It's very interesting. I mean, we're living in it. It's real life. It's real world stuff happening to us. Hello from New Jersey. I have a problem with an air compressor. It's leaking oil through the valve. What can I do? What valve is it leaking through? And if it's already leaking oil, that's signs that it's going out. So prepare to get that replaced is what I would say, especially if it's already high mileage. I'm going to wrap this evening up. I appreciate everyone that's joined us. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I'm going to go live again. We're going to discuss just different topics. If you guys have any suggestions, items you want to talk about, repairs you want us to do, make sure to hit us in the comments section. If you're in the DFW area, give us a shout, 972-225-3017. If you have after treatment problems, if you have issues with your engine, if you have mechanical problems, you have misalignment, you have any kind of suspension problems, we can take care of you. If you're a fleet or a fleet manager, you're looking for expedited service, we offer anything that you need for your needs on these semi trucks. We're very educated, and we got all the tools that's needed. So give us a shout, look us up. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Appreciate everyone that's joined us this evening, and we'll see you again. Be safe until next time.